Hello and welcome to week 6 live chat in HIMS 670, or we like to call it Capstone. I am so sorry that we have to do this recorded instead of the live session last night. But you know, technology is technology. I sat down at my computer to log in and start the Zoom session, and my router said, no, sorry. So anyway, I do want to get this information to you because I think it is so very important, especially for those of you who are unhappy with your grades for step 2. So first, let's go over the week 6 upcoming events. For the RHIA study, we're doing domain 4, which is revenue management. Of course, you need to review the chapters in Oates Waters, watch the RHIA Domain 4 video, participate in the discussion forum, and of course, complete the practice exam, just as you've been doing. But this week, I wanted to give you some more input and excellent locations for further research to really get into these tasks, okay? This is not just generically about revenue cycle. Remember, the RHIA is all about management. It's about doing. It's not abstract knowledge. It's about being able to put your knowledge to use, to function. Okay, so Task A, revenue cycle and reimbursement. You have manage the use of clinical data and optimize reimbursement through management of the revenue cycle. And an excellent source is this free newsletter that you can sign up. It's an e-newsletter. So it'll just come into your email box if you sign up. It's absolutely free. But it really highlights some important things and can emphasize. So especially for those of you who think this might be the path you want to take for your career, definitely sign up for Revenue Cycle Daily Advisor. It really has good information. I learned a lot from it. And don't get me wrong, none of these newsletters that I'm going to talk about tonight, I don't read them. Okay, I read the headlines. Sometimes I'll read the little summary. And then on occasion, when that gives me a taste that's something I want to know more about, then I have that opportunity to go and read the entire article. So it's not as oppressive or as time consuming as you might think. But just skimming the headlines can really give you some insight. All right, Task B is about regulatory agencies, accreditation and licensing, to prepare for it. Not what is the Joint Commission, but what your responsibility as an HIM is to prepare for the visit, okay? Also to process audit requests from outside, such as RACs and other third-party payers, chart reviews, but also to perform internal audits, because those are really going to save your bacon when it comes to making sure compliance is happening and your facility is getting optimum reimbursement. For this, I recommend this free e-newsletter coming to an email box close to you called Accreditation Insider. It is filled with good, interesting information. And remember, it's a free newsletter that comes into your email box. You can go ahead and sign up and watch it and read it and review it until you get past the RHIA when you pass. And then you don't have to pay any attention to it anymore, or until you're working for a facility that's about to get a visit. Okay. All right, C, coding. Now, this is not coding, This is manage or validate coding accuracy, which means you need to be in charge of making sure that internal audits are happening. Now, the RHIA focuses on this by making sure you at least have a functional knowledge of the official guidelines. So, good news, they are available to you online. The ICD-10-CM 2020 official guidelines and the ICD-10-PCS 2020 official guidelines. You can download them from the CDC or CMS. Make sure you're looking at 2020, okay? Remember, ICD-10-CM is diagnosis codes. PCS, procedure coding system, is used only to report procedures provided by the facility, by the hospital, okay? All right, fraud surveillance, participate in investigating incidents of medical identity theft. Very, 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 very important. You don't want to be responsible for that. So, here is a great source from the Office of the Inspector General of the federal government, which is in charge of investigating medical identity fraud. Take a look. Very interesting. Well, I kind of love this stuff, these investigations. But again, you want to at least get a taste. Get an appetizer. Okay? You don't have to make a full meal of fraud investigations, but get an appetizer so you have a better chance of answering that question on the RHIA correctly or discussing it intelligently during a job interview or a promotion review. All right, and last but not least, E, which is clinical documentation improvement. Understanding the query process, and let me emphasize the legal query process. Very, 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 very important. You need to know what it is, how to make sure that it's legal, and how to educate and train your clinical staff regarding supporting documentation requirements. Now, over the last years, clinical documentation improvement has not only become important, it has become its own job description, its own thing with its own certifications and everything, but it's still under the HIM umbrella. And here is a link to CDI strategies that will give you, again, a free e-newsletter coming right into your email box. You can review it, you can scan it, you can hit that delete key, whatever you want. But again, you want to be able to have an idea so you can use your critical thinking skills to accurately answer the question. Again, whether it's on the RHIA or whether it's in an interview or a promotion review, okay? All right, if you have any questions about Domain 4, please email me. I love it when you ask questions. Okay, so next up on your docket, and this date is incorrect, I apologize. This is due, step 3, new technical skills requirements is due on July 5th, okay? In this, you're going to talk about the training that you're going to need to provide to your clinicians. Now, these bullet points are only suggestions, ideas. Do not assume that everybody knows how to type. And trust me when I tell you from things that I read, there are people who think they know how to type, but they don't really know how to type. So we want to make sure that we are getting and giving our clinicians what they need to transition from writing on paper to typing into EHR. And remember, these trainings are to be focused on helping them understand that they can do it and it's for their benefit, okay? and that you are not going to leave them alone. Okay? And July 5th, that's not the right date. I apologize. It's July, no, wait a second. Excuse me. I need my calendar. July 7th. Okay. Sorry about that. You know, I told you, I know we're in week 6 already, and I'm still kind of the Wednesday, Tuesday thing. So, thank goodness for calendars. All right. If you have any questions, please let me know about step 3. All right. So now let's talk about step 2. If you are unhappy with your grade for step 2, I will consider giving you an opportunity to redo it for a better grade. However, only if you take the effort to really learn about electronic health records. Now, I was incredibly surprised at the lack of understanding that was exhibited in several papers that I graded in step 2. And that you don't understand what the true benefits are of electronic health records. So I'm going to review them, and then I'm going to give you 2 excellent, strong sources that will help you understand the true function and benefit of electronic health records. Because storage and not having to buy filing cabinets is not the most important, or even in the top 5 most important benefits of EHR, switching to EHR, and neither is the money aspect of it. It's all about taking care of the patients, improving patient care and patient outcomes. So I'm going to go over some specific things. You need to know this, okay? And I accept the fact that maybe some of your papers were askew because no one ever taught this to you before. So I'm here and I'm teaching it to you, and I'm going to give you good sources for you to learn more, okay? And then you will have no excuse for not understanding the true benefits of electronic health records. And then, and only then, will I consider a second submission on step 2. Because there's no point in you spending your time in throwing out something against the wall just to see if it'll stick when we already know it won't stick. Okay? All right, so let's talk about electronic health records and what they're for. First of all, the whole purpose of this project is for you to use your critical thinking skills to evaluate the workflow used most by your audience, which is your staff and primarily clinicians. Okay? This is not about coding and billing. This is not about storage. This is about how EHR is truly going to improve healthcare providers' ability to improve the delivery of healthcare services. And you have to provide them with explanations of those improvements that will make their jobs easier, more efficient, and effective. That's what they care about. Not storage, not money. I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep harping on that, but I can't even tell you how many of you wrote about that. I don't want to see that anymore. Okay? All right. So the first thing is that EHR enables the providers to provide higher quality and safer care for patients because it provides a complete, all-in-one place record of this patient. Because the records are now digital, it means that the exchange of health information electronically is possible, okay, without having to have somebody stand at a copy machine for 6 hours. Okay, so There are two parts to this exchange of health information. There's internal exchange of information. So now, instead of somebody having to run to the lab or wait for the snail mail to come to get the results of the patient's lab work, as soon as the pathologist has finished evaluating the test results, boom, it's electronically in the patient's record. Okay? That means more quickly the physician can look at the results and determine a more accurate diagnosis and therefore a more accurate treatment plan. Okay? In addition, internally, the imaging department, the radiologist report, boom, it's electronically in 2 seconds. It's in the patient's record, available for the attending to review. But not only that, now the actual images are in the patient's record. They're not in a total other side of the hospital. They're all in one place. So if the attending wants to look at that x-ray for himself or herself, as opposed to just reading the radiologist report, that enhances the ability of all the providers to be more accurate, to provide a more accurate diagnosis, and to create a more efficient and effective treatment plan. Externally, we are now having HIE, Health Information Exchanges, that if the patient agrees, using Health Information Exchange, Dr. A in Hospital, Maryland, can actually exchange records with the patient's primary care doctor on the other side of town, with the patient's permission. So now the primary care physician knows what the cardiologist is saying and not just talking to the patient and getting incomplete and ineffective reporting. But you have to specify that if you're going to talk about this ability of external documentation exchange, you have to mention the fact that it requires signing up for the Health Information Exchange. So switching to EHR from paper enables participation in the exchange externally. It just does not automatically happen. And this is where you have to evidence your knowledge and understanding of these things. Okay? EHRs help providers better manage care because all of the records are there and complete in one place. And that means fewer repetition, duplication of testing, more accurate responses, and more complete information. So, what are we talking about? We're talking about the EHR provides accurate, up-to-date, and complete information about patients at the point of care. Right there by the bedside, if they're in a hospital, in the exam room, the patient can actually see everything. And if the two doctors are in the same group, they can see all the information from the other doctor. Okay, I had a friend of mine who had her first telemedicine visit with her gynecologist. It was about that she's going into menopause. And so the gynecologist is part of the same group as the internal medicine doctor. So the gynecologist was able to pull up and see the results of all of the lab work that the internist had ordered the previous week, and see her entire medical record, so she could make a better, safer, better outcome decision for the patient. Okay? This cannot happen with paper. Enabling this quick access to help coordinate an efficient care. In a hospital, you have all of these specialists caring for one patient. And let me tell you, if you've ever been in a hospital, trying to get two specialists to talk to each other, is almost impossible. But with electronic health records, you don't need that because they're all putting their notes in one location. And they are able to see, oh, I see that you told the doctor you have an itch. Well, that could be important for this specialty, okay? And very important that I also saw a lack of understanding in some Step 2 papers, securely sharing electronic information with patients only if a patient portal is appended to the electronic health records. Listen to me very carefully. Patients are not permitted legally to access their record in the EHR software, which is why the patient portal is a separate thing. And yes, they're connected, but the doctor still has to check the boxes of what things the patient can see and what things the patient cannot see. And then the patient portal also will have encrypted communication back with the provider to ask questions or ask for a refill of medication or things like that. Okay? So yes, it enhances communications, but again, you must evidence your knowledge that you understand the patient portal is a separate thing and it has to be added on to the electronic health record. It is not within the same software. Okay? And then, as I mentioned before, the HIE, the Health Information Exchange, that is added on. It requires separate agreement by the patient under HIPAA, okay? But those are other clinicians who are outside of the group or the hospital, okay? So you see how the EHR is like this central depository of information. And then stemming off of it, they can opt to attach a patient portal. They can opt to attach CPOE, computerized physician order entry. So the physician can send e-prescriptions, can send orders for imaging, lab tests, as well as medication out using electronics instead of scribbling on a little piece of paper. Okay, but you must identify that CPOE is an add-on separate to the EHR. And then you also have the EHR of CDSS, Clinical Decision Support, which is, again, an add-on added into the EHR. So if the physician thinks the patient may have diabetes, whatever, the doctor can click right there and look at the latest, most recent innovation treatment for patients with diabetes and use information that was approved last week to help their patients. How fantastic is that? No more having to wait for the doctor to try and find time to actually read, a year's worth of JAMA or other medical magazines, okay? Now it's there in one place. It's all credible, trustworthy. None of these like veryhealth.com, none of that garbage. It's pure, unadulterated, approved, credible medical information that the doctor can, boom, use a search bar and go right to the point and answer no, this new medication will not conflict. There are no contraindications with this. No, this is okay that you're pregnant. Right there. No waiting. No purposely delaying important treatment. So this is what's important about electronic health records. It enables the provider to more effectively diagnose the patients. You know, symptoms like a cough and a sneeze could mean 20 different diagnoses. But when the physician can actually engage in evidence-based medicine and look at the patient's history and go, oh, you know what? I see last year at this very time of the year, you had these same symptoms. I bet it's allergies. Let's send you for allergy testing. Okay? Reduce medical errors because we can set alerts. And I know a couple of you did mention alerts, which is phenomenal about EHR. If a doctor tries to prescribe something the patient is allergic to, the CPOE will look in the patient's chart and say, wait, no, don't prescribe this. Right there. It reduces medical errors because there's no worry about reading illegible handwriting, okay? And it reduces other concerns because the computer is supporting the physician and his ability to do his job, which is to accurately diagnose and determine an effective treatment plan for the patient, okay? So all of that put together provides safer care, and that is the most important thing about electronic health records. Because a piece of paper in a file folder cannot say, wait a second, you didn't read this piece of page number 25 that says the patient had that medication before and didn't have a good reaction. This is what's important about electronic health records. And it improves patient and provider interaction and communication, not only right there in the exam room or the hospital room, but also through the patient portal, so that when the patient is calmer and not as nervous being with the doctor and can actually process and think about things, the patient can go back in and download a brochure on suggested diet plan or other lifestyle behaviors or whatever it might be, and then ask follow-up questions which they were too embarrassed to ask or just couldn't think, okay? And then, of course, enabling safer, more credible prescribing with CPOE. And remember, CPOE is not only prescriptions, it's imaging orders, lab orders, anything, physical therapy, the whole shoot, anything the doctor has to write orders for can now be sent like that, okay? All right. So, legible, complete documentation. I know a few of you mentioned the fact that, yes, alerts can be set up so that if a doctor tries to leave a field blank, the computer won't let them continue. Because, no, you have to put this information in, which helps all the way around. The most important thing about complete documentation is continuity of care. So all the other professionals on the care team know what's going on with this patient. And yes, it absolutely helps better coding and billing and achieve optimal reimbursement. But this is not the first thing you tell the doctor about why they should be accepting of transitioning to EHR. Whether or not it's true, we're going to make believe like these physicians and these nurses really care about their patients. Okay? In addition, privacy and security is enhanced, which means compliance with HIPAA's privacy rule and security rule. And it helps providers improve their productivity and work-life balance. Because with encryption, the physician can actually leave the office or the hospital and still answer questions because they can access patient records from their phone or from their laptop. They can go home and have dinner with their family and work on charts or something later on, whatever. But it really helps. And, you know, the law says they're not, I know doctors do this, but with paper records, they're not supposed to take paper records out of the facility. I know they do. But with EHR, they're still in the facility. They still have the firewalls and the encryption to protect them. It's just now the doctor is now forced to stay, or the nurses to stay in the office until all hours to get everything done. So it's more efficient. Okay, and beyond the clinical, yes, and I know some of you mentioned this, improve efficiency to meet business goals. And yes, this is a consideration. I am not denying this. I mean, my function, I sit on the administrative side of the building, okay? I'm not clinical, I'm administrative. So yes, we have business goals because we have to, because healthcare is a business. But again, my problem with some of you who mentioned this is you mentioned it first as foremost, or you mentioned it only and mentioned nothing of all the things we just discussed about EHR. Okay? And so, yes, and okay, so now here is a link to healthit.gov. If you can't get it off this recording, then email me and I'm happy to share it with you. In addition, right there in your Oates Waters book, chapter 12, is information about electronic health records benefits. And nowhere does it talk about storage. I'm sorry, I know I'm harping. I apologize. It just was so disturbing to me that so many of you thought this was the very first and therefore most important thing to tell a physician about switching from paper to electronics was the fact that they didn't have to buy more filing cabinets. This is, okay, I'm good. Sorry. I know nobody taught you before. So now you're being taught, okay? And now you will be knowledgeable. Also, as some more additional benefits, advantages, EHR promotes transformed healthcare. This has been, over the last decade, taking healthcare into the future. And I know that sounds like a bumper sticker, but the truth is that everything that is listed here on this slide, and I know it's a lot of information, but it's also on .gov, the healthit.gov. The fact is that electronic health records make such an incredible, and a lot of technology that we are integrating into healthcare has improved our ability to care for our patients. And that is the most important thing. And if you don't believe me, think about it the next time you're the patient or the next time you're the loved one of a patient. What do you want that physician or that nurse to have the greatest consideration of? What's most important? Okay. All right, so there you have it. I hope I was able to help you better understand electronic health records. If you understand and you want to take a second shot at, step 2 for a better grade, only with better understanding of electronic health records, email me and we will talk about it, because this has got to evidence this knowledge. And I promise you, you need to know this. Okay? All right. I'll see you in the discussion boards.